if you don't own a house today, maybe it's not the right day to buy the house. Like, get the proposal under control, like get the bankruptcy discharged, and then look to make sure you have enough money to buy the real estate that you want to have.
Welcome back. Today, we're going to be speaking with Richard Goldhar of Goldhar Associates. So he has 46 employees and he is a licensed insolvency trustee. So this is going to be a really interesting conversation as well. And Richard scaled up this business of 46 team members from December 2013 to today. And he's able to balance that as well with being a father of three boys as well. And really looking forward to this conversation here. Richard, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
So, Richard, can we go back to the origin story? Did you always know you were going to be an entrepreneur, or was it just something that you kind of fell into?
I think I always knew I wanted to open my own firm. I always wanted to drive the messaging that I like to helping individuals and corporations to restructuring their debt. And I always wanted to do it with a smile. And I felt that some of the national firms I had a different approach. And so I thought being on my own, I could train my team the way I like things to be done if I was in that position.
Yeah, right on. Now, is this something you went to? You went to school. You have your BCom there as well, and so maybe we could backtrack a little bit before getting into the business and having this vision to do your own thing. Um, where did you go like right after post-secondary education? Did you just like jump into that field and you've been doing it your whole life, or is it something that you kind of spilled over into?
So I worked for a nonprofit agency. So I worked for Atlantic Jewish Council in Halifax after finishing my BCom at Dalhousie University. And funny enough, the volunteer president of the organization one day came into my office and told me to get a real job. I wasn't sure what the real job meant because I was working quite hard for very little money.
Yeah.
And a few months later, I went back to see him to say, "Well, what's this real job?" He told me I was a little too late, that he wanted me to have to come and work for him at a trustee in bankruptcy firm at the time is what they called it. Uh, and he said, but he had sold his firm to BDO, which was a national firm. So I called my grandparents saying I want to become a trustee in bankruptcy. And I figured they would tell me, I don't know what you're talking about. But funny enough, they're like, our best friend's son runs a trustee in bankruptcy firm. Let us give him a quick call. And lo and behold, the gentleman told me to come for an interview with him. His name was Ken Tessis, and he was at Soberman LLP, which is the largest independent accounting firm in Canada.
Oh,
And I spent a year with him, and then I went and spent another year with a firm called Shiner Cadeckles Wide, which merged in to be the first Ontario firm of MNP on its insolvency division. And from there, a year later, I went to BDO, where I spent 4 years, got my license, uh, and imminently after getting my license, I opened my own firm.
the introduction is so important, right? That you had an introduction there. I think that a lot of people just kind of fall into a job, but if you can get an introduction to the right person, you start just like so much further ahead. Do you have any like recommendations for the listeners out there on how to get the right introductions to be able to maybe start maybe one or two positions ahead potential, or at least getting to the top of the pile for any potential, anybody thinking about getting in right after school? Maybe the listeners, they're like, I don't know what to do, or where to go, and an introduction somewhere would be helpful. Any advice on that?
Introductions are always helpful. In fact, since the inception of my firm, I've always had the gray haired individuals running the day to day practice. So, as I said to you, I started working for a gentleman by the name of Ken Tessis. When I opened my firm, he joined my firm to run my firm for the first 4.5 years on the consumer practice. He was here a total of 9 years. We spent 9 years on the corporate practice, 4.5 on the consumer. And then Marvin Zweig, who I worked for at MNP, when he retired from MNP, he came in 2019 and and he's still with us today. He ran our consumer practice. So I say the best thing you can do is find gray hair and huddle up to them
Yeah.
because they've been through a lot of the ups and the downs, and every business has got its ups and downs.
Yeah. No, if you can, I mean, from an advice standpoint, if you can get some wise counsel to save a misstep, it sure does help. You don't need to relearn the same lesson. And then, the introductions that they're able to make as well can save you a lot of time.
And I also found too, like in our business, the average age of a trustee when I got my license, I think was like 42 or 44, and I was 30 when I got my license.
Hmm.
So it's a long road to getting a trustee license because it's a government program, self-taught for the most part, with national board exams. And the passing rate at the time that I was doing it was around 40%. I think it's up to about 60% now, but it's still a very tough exam. So uh, it certainly requires you to spend a lot of time apprenticing with individuals. Program takes about 3 to 4 years to complete.
Wow. I had no idea. So, like, that's something that it seems like, so the age is getting older. So, I mean, for anybody young and upcoming, it seems like that would that be a good potential business to get into, or maybe even come work with you and learn the business, somebody younger coming in. Is that, do you see it as an ongoing kind of growing business, or more people going into debt now than ever, or are you seeing it kind of improving?
Consumer practice is, I would say, steady. I know the media is saying everyone's going bankrupt, everyone's doing a proposal, everyone's doing this. If you look at the actual statistics from the superintendent bankruptcy, I mean, it's going up, but it's not a drastic increase.
Mm,
On the corporate side, likewise, I mean, there's certainly some legacy retailers that are having some issues, companies that are over leveraged are having some issues. There's still a lot of money in the market.
yeah.
Uh, so if you have the right connections and right quality of business, you can easily get refinanced. Maybe not by a bank, but certainly by private lenders or private equity.
Mm,
So it's definitely not causing licensed insolvency trustees to be overly busy. We're certainly keeping steady. I always joke around we are definitely recession proof because both individuals and corporations will be more excited to make riskier investments when economy is doing well. And unfortunately, those sometimes don't pan out well. They're going to need to do a bankruptcy proposal to get rid of
right.
the debt. And in bad times, they lose their jobs. Economic hardship for whatever reason, real estate values dropping, they can't refinance their houses, and they'll also have to come to a trustee. So I would say we are pretty agnostic to what's going on in the economy.
That's so good.
Contrary to what the media likes to say.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and that's so helpful. Like, I tell people, like, the news is one thing, but like, go to the trusted professionals. And this is where, like, your power team, your connections, and, who your associations are that you surround yourself is so important, that you go to them for the real data. Cause that's a lot of times it's completely different. Or maybe it's like a part of the market that the news is talking about and they kind of blew it up. Real estate is no different. You could, I mean, real estate out there, depending on, could be one market sector that's getting hurt, and then another sector is completely fine, right? But it's easy to throw a blanket over the whole industry.
Absolutely.
Can you explain kind of what a typical restructuring looks like, and what does kind of the beginning point look like, and then what's the end result after going through your process look like?
Sure. So from the consumer practice, that's an individual. They'll have sleepless nights, a lot of stress, maybe some marital issues. They're going to come and see us. They're going to show us all their credit card statements. We're going to pull an Equifax or TransUnion report. We're going to see all their other debts. We're going to look at their bank statements and probably see a few payday loans, lines of credits, high interest loans, probably a few cars that have negative equity in them from high interest lenders. We're going to sit down. We're going to look at what their true assets are and what the equity inside those assets are. So, with the house, we're going to look at the value of their house, less the mortgage, see what the percentages that they own of the home. Then we're going to look at any contributions to their RSPs in the last 12 months, any investments they hold here, anywhere around the world. And we're going to figure out, based on provincial legislation, because we're a federal act, but provincially is how you look at what's exempt from seizure by a trustee for the benefit of creditors. And we're going to come up with what's a reasonable sum for repayment if they choose to do a proposal. Proposals are just a consolidation of the debt, one easy payment payable over 60 months. If we find out that their income or their level of debt or their realization makes it to a position that they can't afford a reasonable sum of money, or creditors, for whatever reason, are declining the proposal, we'll talk to them about what a bankruptcy looks like. And a bankruptcy is just looking at their assets, figuring out what the trustee needs to realize based on the equity in their house, again, and all their investments. We'll work with them. And I always say to people, we go from rainy days to sunny days. And pardon the pun if that's from Obama, but it's the reality in this business. And I can't tell you how many people say to me, "Why did I wait so long for this?" Yes, it's a serious process. Yes, you have to really do your research and make sure it's the right decision for you, which we're going to help you with as licensed insolvency trustees. But once you get through that process and you know you're down the right path, follow the rules. Don't reinvent the situation, reinvent the act. You're going to be just fine. You're going to get through.
Richard, what percentage approximately that people that come to you would go into, say, bankruptcy versus you helping them with restructuring their current debt?
So right now we're about 70% of our clients do consumer proposals, 30% do bankruptcies.
Yeah.
They both affect your credit rating. They both stay on your credit bureau for approximately the same amount of time. So it's really what is better for you as the client that needs help. And don't be worried about stigma of names.
Mm,
Best advice I can give on a consumer
yeah.
practice.
No, I got that. So, um, I would imagine you would be very well connected when it comes down to, okay, go to the list lender based on your profile. They're loaning you they're giving you the best rate. And I would imagine you have a pretty strong Rolodex of lenders and private lenders, I would imagine, to be able to, roll it into one sum, or do you sub that out?
So we would just typically, most people come to us and they'll say, "Oh, my friend is an agent, or my friend is a mortgage broker, my friend's a car guy." If they ask us for help, we'll certainly give them people that have come to us that we have talked to, that we feel comfortable will help clients in the right direction. But what I try to explain to individuals is take it slowly. Like, if you don't own a house today, maybe it's not the right day to buy the house. Like, get the proposal under control, like get the bankruptcy discharged, and then look to make sure you have enough money to buy the real estate that you want to have.
Hmm.
Because I would say to people, it's not required to own a house, but it's a great luxury, a great investment, a great forced savings mechanism if you can afford it. And so I find the folks in the industry that I deal with are typically on the same bandwagon as us with that thought process. And those are the ones that we can work with time and time again when we're referring clients.
Yeah, that's really good. Richard, where do you see the biggest, we'll say, maybe the lowest hanging fruit? Are there a few examples where somebody made a bad mistake or they did something where it's like once they make that mistake, they generally go down this pathway? Is there any kind of low hanging fruit you can share with the listeners as to, things to be mindful or watch out for?
High interest loans, payday loans, buying multiple condos when you're a employee, or multiple houses. I mean, those are typically the ones where you see as soon as one thing goes wrong, they have no escape route out.
Yeah. Especially condos a few years ago. I mean, it's like, of course it's going to go up. Pre-construction always goes up, right? Oh, this is like 3 or 4 years down the road. And all of a sudden now they're realizing, geez, like pre-construction, it's not as sexy as I thought it was. There's
Correct,
actually some risk.
or a tenant moves out, or a tenant stops paying. Like, the governments during COVID were telling tenants they don't have to pay their rent.
Yeah.
And then the landlord tenant board in Ontario, for instance, is very difficult for throwing unpaying tenants out of their residences. And it's pretty similar across the country. I mean, we're a national firm. We go from Vancouver, Victoria, BC, all the way over to Newfoundland. and every province in between except for Quebec. And it's always the same story.
So you see a lot of landlords like being financially challenged because they got caught with a tenant that is maybe just not paying rent. Uh,
Small
okay, yeah.
individuals.
So we have a real estate brokerage, so north of Toronto, and then we have a real estate investment firm where we buy these multifamily properties. So we speak with lots of investors, and it's like regularly, I have these conversations, and they're beautiful people. They love real estate, but they're like, I am so fed up. I have this tenant in, and I cannot get him out. It's like I'm done with it. They made money in real estate, but they're just looking for, and that's where it's a good fit because then we're able to help them. But today more than ever, I found that there's somehow, I don't know if there's some separate coaching going on and how to navigate the system, but there's a lot of landlords that are getting hurt out there, and it's unfortunate because they work really hard as well, and they're providing housing, and it's just being taken advantage of, and they don't really have, like you had said, an escape route, so to speak, when they get the wrong person in.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. So Richard, when you took your first hire, so you made the leap, okay, you're working for a national firm, and you're just like, okay, I want to go and do this. What was it that made you say, I'm going to go on my own? Was there a reason? Was there the vision that you had? Was it something that you fell into? Can you share with us what happened there?
Absolutely. So for me, going out on my own was really to be self-fulfilling accomplishment of a dream of helping individuals with a smile and helping companies with practical solutions. And I just felt at the larger national firms, they sort of had things in a box, and I wanted to get a bit outside the box while staying compliant with the Bankruptcy and Insolvency Act. And I knew I could only do that if I went on my own.
Love, yeah, no, and so you had a vision for what that looks like. And when you say it, it's a good differentiator. Doing it with a smile, right? It's simple enough for the team to know that, but people can hear it on the other side of the phone if you do have a smile, and if it's coming from a place of like sincerity. I would imagine that people are like, when they come to you, it's like, oh, you guys are different. I would imagine.
We get a lot. I was on the phone yesterday doing a sign up with an individual. And I still will speak with clients. And I did a sign up yesterday. And at least 3, 4 times throughout the conversation, this individual was saying to me, God bless you. God bless your company. You saved my life. I really was contemplating ending my life. And that's why I do what I do. And on the corporate side, it's very similar, although it's a different type of business and maybe a little bit less emotional, but for the owner, it's just as
Yeah,
difficult
emotional.
to watch their business go down when they've spent their life putting it together and they can't control tariffs, they can't control
Yeah,
government taxing, they can't control CRA from its audit perspectives, they can't control costs going up exorbitantly when they can't pass it on to their clients. And we've dealt recently with an auto manufacturing operation that had operations in Newmarket in Turkey, and we had to wind that down for them. We had to deal with a stone company. They had 3 yards across the province of Ontario. Um, Unfortunately, cost of contractor labor and cost of stone was going through the roof, and it was a second generation business we had to liquidate and sell. That was a court appointed receivership. And we worked recently on the sale of a really great tech company out of Atlantic Canada. Unfortunately, they borrowed too much money at a high interest rate, and it was sold to a national leader, which has done incredibly well. Valuation was 5 point something million on sale by the trustee. I think they've already got up to something around $40 million only about a year later.
well,
Uh, we've dealt with a dental group out in the West Coast. Again, cost to renovate, COVID, people being uncertain of their jobs, so they weren't coming to get their teeth cleaned as much. We had to deal with a restructuring of a proposal in the West Coast. Um, all these great opportunities for these individuals that unfortunately got on the wrong side of the tracks, not by their own doing. And we were able to restructure them either by exiting the business, restructuring and giving them a clean balance sheet, or liquidating on their behalf as a secured creditor to get them back the money that was rightfully theirs.
If you're doing a corporate deal, how does it work with the, say, a business like that business that, they, I guess they had to sell at 5 million and then a year later they're up to 40. Are these like off market deals that they go in trade, or is that
We were
something?
never off market trustees and bankruptcies. We don't do things off market because
Yeah.
we're blessed by the court. So it's just that we sold the company for about $5 million. These new buyers were able to work the company, and God bless them, and they were able
Yeah,
to get the valuation up, but it had nothing to
for
do with the
sure.
trustee.
No, I got it. Is it, where do they market these? Is it just, it goes to the open market, it goes to a business
Oh, but
broker and
yeah, it
then they,
goes to
yeah,
business brokers. It could
got
be
it.
in the papers, could be online with our corporate team at goldhar.ca, and you'd see our companies that are for sale. Um, it's very transparent, very, very transparent.
Got it. Um, and then same with real estate. I guess going that direction, generally the lender take it back, or would it would
No,
go on?
generally the lender would not take back. Generally, it'd
Yeah,
be the trustee selling.
got
If
it.
there's equity, it only goes back to the lender if there's no equity in the property.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I can imagine, business owner, they have their life that they poured into it. That's where that smile, I think, is so important. Like they just need empathy, um, through it, right? They don't need somebody that, they don't need to be kicked when they're down.
I always tell people when I go to a professional myself, I go to my lawyer or my accountant, somebody says to me, "Wow, that's a big problem." My natural reaction is, I think I got to find a different professional.
Yeah.
And they look at me like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Well, if you're going to tell me, wow, this is a big problem, all I think you want to do is charge me lots of money.
Hmm.
Because if I thought it was a small problem, I wouldn't be at your office. I'd be doing it with myself."
Yeah.
And so every time a corporation comes to see us with their directors and their officers and their shareholders, I really, really think twice about the comments I make, and to make sure that I'm not insulting them, because clearly they're here to see me for my professional advice and that of our team. And so our team always just gives ideas, thoughts, and where we see the end game to be. And if we align with those stakeholders, they'll retain us, and we work together to make the outcome as positive as possible.
Yeah. No, it's so well said because they're coming to you to fix the problem, and they don't need a bigger problem than what they thought, right? They're coming to you as to be the guide, uh, not this like order taker that's gonna make everything bigger than what it is. Is to minimize the problem is what you want to do. And this is where, like, for us, when I'm training all our team members, it's like, so they're negotiating a deal on behalf of a client. It's like you are the gatekeeper of whatever's happening on the other side. So it's like you're filtering information to be able to get the client the right information, but you're not passing along the drama that maybe came to you, right? So maybe the other broker is like all this drama, and then you're passing it along to your client. They're hiring you to be the guide and to filter that, and to be able to still be totally transparent, but they don't need the extra drama side of things as well. Like they need a great experience is what they need. But there's the other side of it is you have like, sometimes brokers come in and they beat, say, the house up, and they do that with this mindset that, say, they're pricing homes, and they think if they're going to beat up the house, they're going to knock down the price of it, versus focusing on the positive things of the house and how you're going to sell it. And it's interesting, like, people know what their flaws are. They don't need you to kind of point and laugh at them, so to speak, right?
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah. All right. So you took the leap. You had this vision of helping people with a smile, which I love that. And again, why I love it is because it's simple enough, and it hits at the core, I think, of where the industry was falling short, and you saw an opportunity to create something. You brought your first hire on. So can you tell us a little bit? Like, so there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that they're scared to hire someone. I remember my first hire. The very first one was like, okay, I'm just going to hire somebody for 30 hours a week. That's it. And 30 hours a week, And then where it really helped me is like, I'm only going to do it for 3 months and see if there's value. So it's not a full year investment. And it was scary. Finally we hired somebody and she never worked less than 40. And we went from like 38 sales to 100 sales that next year. So I was like all in, but it's scary. And a lot of entrepreneurs don't take that step. They remain kind of their sole practitioner on it, and they're comfortable with that. But how was that for you hiring your first hire? And, was it successful? And what lesson did you learn from hiring
Well,
that person?
absolutely. So from day one, we actually had 3 people plus myself on staff. So I
Okay.
was never working alone. So it was me and another trustee, and then we immediately had two um, estate administrators, is what we call them. And within the first year, we went from four. Like I said, we were four when we first opened the doors. Within the year, we went to 10. Within
Wow.
2 years, we went to 15. Within 5 years, we went to 20. From year 5 to about year 8 or 9, we stayed in and around the 2025 mark, until around COVID, and then just in the tail end of COVID, we went from 25 to 45 staff in about 15 months. So I've always had the same sort of belief as you that, um, it's the team that makes the company. It's not me. I'm just high level strategy, trying to give people coaching ideas, trying to give people ideas on how to make the best efforts. But it's my team that really makes Goldhar what it is today.
And you've seen the value from, starting with staff right off the bat. And I guess you must have had some business in the door to be able to do that right from the beginning, like from a lead gen standpoint. Was that helpful with that decision? And did you see a benefit having staff and help? What encouragement can you give the listeners out there that are thinking about hiring someone?
I, like I said, it's what made my company. There's no two ways about it. I knew that the people we were hiring were the best in the business,
Yeah.
were the most competent, had the same agenda as me, which is provide advice with a smile, uh, be knowledgeable, but we're also highly, highly regulated. So there's no real way to operate any sort of scalable trustee and bankruptcy firm without having staff.
Hmm. Yeah.
Just because we're highly regulated by our Office of the Superintendent of Bankruptcy, and the amount of reporting they require is just not possible
Hmm. Yeah.
without a quantum of staff to do the work.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Is there a common misconception about your industry, or like a myth that people, when they look at that industry, is there anything
I
that
think
comes?
people would generally make the joke that you're like an undertaker, you're stealing stuff from, yeah, I think somebody said you're stealing toys from kids, silly comments of people that are very ignorant. Um, because really we're here causing people to be in the individual and the consumer practice. We're the ones that are taking people from nearly committing suicide to seeing light and positivity, and that there is a fresh start, and that they can shed the debt. uh, that's the reality on the consumer practice. And on the corporate practice, we're the ones that are ultimately allowing the Canadian economy to have entrepreneurs to start their businesses, because they know that should they go down a path that's having an issue, we are the only licensed individuals in Canada to restructure their operations, allow them a successful exit, or do some sort of balance sheet restructuring for them.
It's so interesting. I interviewed it was a rodent company, pest
Yeah.
control business operator. He runs a great business, and how he positioned it, he's like, people, they look at it as like, they think, I'm like rodents and that. But he's like, what the real mission of the company is to provide safety and cleanliness for it. And he totally flipped the vision of what it was. It's not just like to get rid of. It's actually, we're actually saving the community. We're providing like safe workspace for his clients. And how he flipped that was like, so like, it was so powerful. Like, even for us on the multifamily side, the real estate investment firm, for us, we do these value add deals where we're buying 1980, 2010, and our mission is to go full out for our residents and provide the best living experience in the world. And it's like that concept for like B class where they're paying maybe $1,500 to $2,200 a month. It's affordable, but they're hometown heroes, right? They're the nurses and firefighters and police officers, and they're doing well, blue collar more. So residents, but that idea on having a strong leader that can speak that vision, I think is so important in every business. And some businesses is like, oh, I didn't even think of it that way, but 100% I see that. So it's really cool hearing from your perspective. Like I don't have like that kind of deeper knowledge, and I think for the listeners that are listening in today, I think that that they'll definitely see that perspective where you're coming from, and how you can actually bring people through a very dark place and get them to the other side. I love it.
Absolutely. And the superintendent bankruptcy, she's very much pushing that individuals should seek the uh, help of a licensed insolvency trustee, and they should not be going to any debt consultants or credit counselors. And so we're doing everything we can as a corporation to make sure we're advertising as much as possible so that the Canadian public does know what licensed insolvency trustees do, and we can extinguish the myths that surround us.
Yeah. No, it's good. That's a very strong and good mission that you're on. I feel that with business, that the quality of the business is the quality of the decisions that you make. So you make a lot of decisions. You oversee over 40 staff, a lot of clients. They're depending on you, right? Um, are there any principles or values that you filter your daily decisions through to be able to get good quality ones?
Yeah, I typically try to think what my religious leader would think.
Yeah.
I always think that they, in general, have pretty high standards and morals for the most part. And I try to think if I went to my place of worship, would I be comfortable saying this to my spiritual leader or not?
Hmm.
And that's kind of my guiding light.
Yeah.
And I'm not a religious person.
Yeah. That's really good. Yeah. No, that's good. I like that. Uh, for
Yeah, because
me,
some people say to me, "Oh, well, wouldn't you want to say whatever to your parents?" I said, well, lots of people lie to their parents, but you're
right.
generally not going to lie to your spiritual
Yeah,
leader.
I love that. That's really good. It's interesting. I've seen it where definitely I think that's something that I've done as well. Um, but another thing that I do is I focus on if this scenario was blown up in the newspaper, would I be proud of it or not? And there's like a few things that you always a few things that come in. People make suggestions like, no, that would not be good in the newspaper. That's a definite no, right? So I love that. I think that whatever you're felt like, have these little filters, these little tools that help you make good quality decisions, because those compound over time. And if you don't have those and you start making one bad decision down the road, can totally bite you in a big way.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. How about any like regular habits or routines that you do to help you with your productivity, Richard? Anything that you do that really helps you?
I try to get out to walk once to twice a week. Um, and I'll also do some skiing in the winter. Uh, I'm a happy shopper. I love to support the economy. And those are sort of what I do to clear my head.
Yeah.
And I'm the first to say to people here, like, hey, you know what? You need to take a bit of time off, go clear your head. Because with a clear head, you're going to operate much more efficiently.
I found when I started walking in the mornings, I found like my mindset and my like overall like mental health was like totally bad. Like working out is like pretty consistent, but walking for some reason, I don't know what it is about walking, but especially in the morning as the sun's kind of coming up, it's pretty powerful. My wife was like, "You got to walk." I'm like, "Yeah." It was like, "Yeah, I'm busy." I was like, "No, you got to work. Come on." Finally, I started doing it, and it's been great.
No, in the summer, I try to play some tennis. find that exciting. Yeah, I just, little things. Like I'm not crazy about what I eat or anything like that. I'm like, I feel like a Sunday I'll walk down to Baskin Robbins, buy a Sunday, and I want a piece of pizza, eat piece of pizza. I'm very happy. Just sort of, I have the belief you'll only live once. Probably my doctor doesn't believe the same result that I do, but I say you only have so many heartbeats, so do what you like.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's a wise thing to allow yourself to be happy. Um, there's this book. There's a palliative nurse that wrote. I forget her name, but she wrote down the major regrets of people on their deathbed, and one of them was, I wish I would have allowed myself to be happy.
Yeah, yeah, no, and I love seeing my boys and hanging out with
Yeah.
my wife. We do quite a bit of travel. My wife and I will probably go away 3, 4 times a year, just the two of us. I go with my kids 2, 3 times a year. Go away by myself. Like, I often have to travel to all my offices across Canada and some international travel, and I'm very happy if I can go on my own.
Mm, yeah.
That's my relaxation time.
Your think time. Richard, can you share maybe a failure that you had that you overcame, and maybe kind of a key lesson from the failure that you would have gone through?
Absolutely. So, there was 2. One, I went working for one of the chartered banks as a teller, and I was having issues for whatever reason, uh, balancing the till, like because you had these tills and it was all paper transactions at the time, so deposit slips and withdrawal slips, and I remember the, manager being just awfully rude, like, wasn't really helpful, and I never really got great training on how to balance the tills. And I remember being called into the branch manager's office, and I just sort of said, "Look, you know what? I think they're setting me up for failure here, so why don't we just call it a day?" And I remember him looking at me saying, "You're just gonna walk out?" I'm like, "Well, it's one thing to try to learn and how to get fixed if you're gonna get trained. But if the supervisor's just bombarding me, like, there's no point in arguing with you. Just
Mm,
find somebody else." And I remember at that point, and even to this day, do I think to myself, well, should I have hung in there? Shouldn't I have hung in there? I don't know. But why take the abuse?
mm,
There's one thing to learn, there's another thing to take abuse.
yeah.
And I think that another big advantage or disadvantage I had, I remember the first piece of real estate I bought was in Dundas, Ontario, and it was a property with 3 other partners, and the property value dropped. The tenant moved out. We didn't have any guarantees with the bank at the time, and I said to them, like, "Look, I'm not gonna keep putting good money after bad money."
Yeah.
Maybe hindsight's 2020 because it would have been very well worth it if I would have bought my partners out. But I walked away from the building, and I remember to this day, I think I lost, somewhere in the 6 figures. But you know what? I kept thinking to myself, I got to look at the big picture in life, and the big picture was growing my firm, making sure my family had a stable environment,
Yeah.
and so I wrote off that investment. And I remember the day handing the keys back, and it's just a day you never forget.
Mm, yeah. I think there's wisdom in what you said there. Although you look back on it, it's like, oh, maybe it would have worked out if I would have bought them. But I think overall, there's a wisdom principle there to not put good money after bad, like you had said. It's like I think that rule will because it's always, oh, I put this much in and then it's a bad deal still, but you keep putting it in because you don't want to be embarrassed. You want to be able to bring it back. But if that deal was positioned there, would you have, and you didn't have any money, would you put that money in knowing that you're going to get that, that other amount back? But like the odds of that happening are very low. But
Exactly.
when you're in the trenches, you just don't see all the, that it's actually how bad of a deal. You get kind of like these, blinders on. And this is where I think it's really important to have people around you that can say, hey, Richard, or hey, Mark, like that's not a good thing. And then you got to, have the humility to say, yeah, you're probably right on that. So that's a couple of really good ones. Okay, how about investing? Do you have any investing advice? You just gave some, not good money after bad. But when it comes down to investing, do you like real estate investing? Do you like what kind of insight or advice would you have for our listeners when it comes down to overall investing?
Yes, I'm big into spread the wealth. Uh, I think if people have their matrimonial home or their primary residence, I would say that's good amount of real estate until you have money in the stock markets, money in the bond market, money in TFSAs, RRSPs, uh, some life insurance if you can afford it. I think if you really make yourself well rounded, it's better because if one segment goes down, at least you have another pocket to pull from. If you have
Mm,
all your investment in real estate and the real estate market takes a tank, you got a problem. Or if all your money's in the stock market takes a tank, you got a problem. But if you're well diversified, even on a smaller scale, I think that's the best. And I always say the the tortoise wins the race.
mm, yeah, that's good. Very good. All right. Okay, so we have three last questions here, and then we're going to wrap up. You ready for rapid fire?
Rapid fire.
All right, cool. So I'm a big reader, love reading. Richard, I'm curious for you, which book has made the biggest impact in your career?
Boom, bust, and echo.
Okay, well, can you give us a key insight from that? What was your biggest takeaway?
Uh, Similar to my whole conversation with you, talks about the good, the bad, the ugly in every business, and just sort of keeping a smile on your face and looking for the positives and keep moving along.
Right on. Very cool. All right. So, second question we have is three different words that people around you that know you best would describe you as.
Lovable, honest, straightforward.
Very good. I totally agree with that from the conversation we're having here. And then, uh, last question is any final advice, Richard, for listeners? Any key insights, life advice? It can be anything right across the board. Is there any kind of last nuggets that you can share with our listeners today?
I would say to folks, think today's your last day and make it the best day you can.
Yeah. So good. All right. And how can they reach out to your company if they know somebody or maybe they're going through a challenge right now? What's the best way they can learn a little bit more about your company?
Absolutely. On the consumer practice, you could check out shedthedebt.ca. For our corporate practice, you can check out goldhar.ca. And if you just want to talk, hit pound debt on your mobile device. That's pound 3328 on your mobile device across Canada, and it'll call right into our office.
Right on. Well, Richard, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate your time here.
Thank you, Mark, for having me. Be well.
Right on. Well, thank you everyone for listening as well. If you like the show, you can go ahead and subscribe and share the channel with any other entrepreneurs that you think will benefit from it. And just remember, guys, one of the fastest ways to build your wealth is to grow your business, invest in real estate. I love you guys.